Fast, brutal, skillful, aggressive, yet considered a tactical gentleman's game. Rugby is a sport with almost 9 million registered players around the world in 120 different countries across 6 different continents. However, rugby has been dominated for the most part by former British Empire territories like New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, and the European nations. However, Georgia has recently appeared to be an unlikely contender to join the ranks of rugby's super elite teams. How on earth is a former Soviet state nestled in the mountainous Caucasus with only 3.5 million people living and very little influence from the British Empire managing to upset the status quo? We explore the surprising history behind the game of rugby union in Georgia, recent successes, and look at what may come in the future. This is the feisty story of rugby in Georgia. The Georgian national rugby team, nicknamed the Lelos, represents Georgia in the men's international rugby union game. The team is administered by the Georgian Rugby Union and takes part in the annual Rugby Europe Championship, and usually qualifies for the Rugby World Cup 2, which takes place every 4 years. Georgia is currently considered a second-tier union nation, which is one of the fastest growing rugby nations too. The Lelos first participated in the Rugby Europe Championship, winning the tournament in 2001, and every year since 2006 to 2008, with the exception of 2017. The bulk of the national squad are based in France, in both the top 14 and lower divisions. This is a practice that was popularised by the former national team coach Claude Sorel, a Frenchman. Rugby is one of the most popular sports in Georgia. The national team has qualified for the Rugby World Cup 6 times, first in 2003, playing against rugby superpowers like England and South Africa. The Lelos won their first ever Rugby World Cup match in 2007, where they beat Namibia 30-0. They wear either white, red or a burgundy kit, with the symbol being the Borj-Gali, an ancient national symbol representing the flow of time. But how on earth did this all come about? To understand how rugby union was first introduced, we must explore a time long ago. Let's travel back to the 12th century, where Georgian poet Shota Rustaveli writes about the characters playing Lelo Berti in his epic poem, The Knight in the Panther's Skin. Lelo Berti is a brutal medieval-style sport still played in Georgia today in the Guria region. Lelo or Lelo Berti, literally meaning field ball, is a Georgian folk sport which is a full contact ball game and very similar to rugby. Within Georgian rugby union terminology, the word Lelo is used to mean a try and is the nickname of the national team. In Lelo, teams would consist of all the men from neighbouring villages, and the field would sometimes have to be crossed via a stream, which players would somehow have to manage to ford in pursuit of the ball. A large heavy ball was placed in the middle of a field, and the goal was to carry it over the river into the opposing side's territory. The field sometimes stretched several kilometres on very rough ground. The contestants would have to contend with spurs, hills, valleys and woods, cascading streams and marshes. Any means necessary could be employed to drive the ball forward using hands or feet. It was believed that the winning team would secure the better harvest for their village. Nowadays, Lelo, still being played by the way, strictly follows defined rules on a proper sized pitch. The match ball is round, made with leather filled with grass, horsehair and sheep's wool, and it weighs around 2.5 kilograms and is short of 1 meter long. Players are allowed to knock the ball out of opponents' hands, and it is now played with 15 players aside, just like rugby union. You may block your opponents who don't have the ball though. There were several unsuccessful attempts to introduce rugby union into Georgia, the earliest known being 1928, with subsequent attempts in 1940 and 48. rugby was properly introduced to Georgia by a French-Armenian teacher, Jacques Hapskian. The first rugby session was held on the 15th of October 1959 in Tbilisi at the racecourse, where 20 people only attended the meeting. The Georgia Rugby Union was founded in 1964, but until the late 1980s it was a part of the Soviet Union's Rugby Federation. The Rugby Union connection between France and Georgia started as links where they were established by powerful French Communist Party. Georgia initially did not have its own team, and its best players would play for the USSR team. In 1988, Georgia produced their first national sevens side while still a Soviet republic, and hosted a tour by Zimbabwe a year later. On the 9th of April 1991, Georgia declared independence from the Soviet Union. Georgia was now a rugby union nation, but getting matches was not easy. Resources were limited, and Georgia only managed to get the odd game against Ukraine until it gained membership of World Rugby in 1992. Since then, the game has grown and grown, producing internationally recognized players such as the famous Mamuka Gogodze, known as Gogodzilla, and creating their home league, the Didi Ati, or the Big Ten. Now with about 3,000 registered players, Georgia has managed to climb up to 11th in the world rankings, recently upsetting the status quo. Lately, Georgia has beaten Tier 1 sides Wales and Italy, therefore arguing they should be competing in the most popular annual tournament, the Six Nations. The women's team has had some success in the sevens competition, and Shavi Lomi, or the Black Lions, a Georgian super club, is playing club rugby in the European Challenge Cup, beating former Celtic League champions the Scarlets on their competition debut. The problem is, what's next? It's clear the potential for growth is there. Georgian rugby has proven it will grow as long as the opportunities present themselves. There is pressure on World Rugby to get Tier 1 nations to invite Georgia to tour there and play more international tests in Tbilisi and elsewhere. Rugged but regular competition is needed if success is to continue. Unfortunately, the future is uncertain and is in the hands of those running prestigious competitions. A matter of money. Georgia has always excelled in physical and power sports. Weightlifting record breakers, martial arts, Greco-Roman wrestling champions in the Olympics, and so on. Rugby was the natural next step. How this sport grows in Georgia will be down to two main factors: greater exposure to the Tier 1 ties, tours and competitions, and promoting club level rugby where players get to play regularly at the highest level. I hope you've enjoyed this insight into the Georgian Rugby Union situation. If you did, please like, subscribe and comment below. For more Georgian content, check out the other videos on the channel.